Good afternoon. Welcome to the sixth day of budget hearings. I'm Councilman Kevin Kramer. Councilman Kevin Kramer, Chair of the Budget Committee. With me today is my Vice Chair, Marcus Winkler, joined also in chambers by Councilwoman Purvis, Councilman Benson, Councilman Bratcher, Councilman Hudson, Councilman Batchon, Councilwoman Woolridge, Councilwoman Parker, Councilman Piagentini, Councilwoman Ruri, Councilman Leninger, Councilman Herndon, Councilman Owen, Councilman Joseph, Councilwoman Bass, and Councilman Syme. Joined online by Councilwoman McCraney, and I think that's everybody. I'll try to keep an eye out and call out others as they come in. I believe Councilwoman Reno Weber has an excused absence. Did I call? I think I've done that every day. Councilman Reno Weber has an excused absence. LMPD will not be making opening comments today. We will start now with council member questions. I want to remind you before we start discussing LMPD's $254.7 million proposed operating budget and $3.7 million capital budget, state and federal grants are listed under restricted funds, and any use of ARP funding is not contained in this budget document. Welcome Chief Humphrey, Deputy Chief Emily McKinley, and Assistant Chief Corey Robinson to the chambers. The U.S. Department of Justice, DOJ, dismissed the federal lawsuit against Louisville Metro Government and LMPD, dismissing the consent decree. Yesterday, the mayor and LMPD announced the city will proceed with implementing the reforms of the consent decree, including hiring an independent monitor. The mayor stated the independent monitor service will cost $750,000, which is budgeted in the LMPD's FY26 proposed budget. In FY25, $375,000 was budgeted in LMPD for consent decree monitoring. During the press conference yesterday, the mayor stated that none of the $375,000 will be spent in FY25. Therefore, these funds may be reallocated to other metro projects. Does LMPD anticipate there will be other costs associated with implementing the reforms noted in the consent decree, and what are those expenditures? I'm guessing you're looking at the same $375,000 that we are. We want to make sure if you have something, we have that covered. So, sorry, Chief Humphrey.
Thank you, Councilman Kramer, and I appreciate all of you being here and the support that you've given us over the past couple of years. It's much appreciated that we are doing this in collaboration, so much appreciated. Thank you. As far as the $375,000, obviously not going to be spent this year. If we put out an RFP even today, it would be almost impossible to hire a monitor prior to the end of the fiscal year. That being said, I think the efforts that we've taken over the course of the previous years in order to get a lot of the both personnel as well as software and contracts that we needed to put in place, we've already done, so I don't anticipate any other cost.
Thank you. I neglected to read into the record, this meeting is being held virtually so that council members can join. There's a rule that there's a piece that we read into that. So, Madam Clerk, if you would, please.
This meeting is being held pursuant to KRS 61.826 and Council Rule 5A, read in full.
Thank you. Okay. Next in the queue is Councilman Leninger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here, Chief Humphrey. Can you tell me what the total number of arrests and citations are to date in FY25?
It's funny you asked that, sir. That was a question that I tried to look up just right before we came here, and I believe the number was right around 17,000. I'll have to confirm that. I believe that's down about 2,000 from year-to-date last year.
And so that's arrests and citations, or just arrests?
Arrests.
Okay, and what's the number for citations?
I can get you that number. I can have it before we finish this council meeting, probably.
All right. So the reason I'm asking is we have a very significant trend since 2020 of a drop in arrests and citations combined. Starting, in 2019, we had 1,254 patrol units, and we made a combined 85,684 arrests and citations. This past year, the total combined for arrests and citations were 44,543. That is a 48% drop in arrests and citations, a 38% drop in arrests and citations per patrol unit, with only a 13% drop in total patrol units. So has there been any effort by LMPD to study this drop in activity and efficiency? Because I'll be honest, in the labor world, we call that a slowdown.
Yes, sir, and I appreciate the question. I think that's part of the struggle that we've had over the past 5 years is, in all honesty, part of it is due to a drop in manpower, being over 250 officers short from where we were previously. But part of that has been the environment that we've worked in, and that's what we have strived to overcome. We know that when it comes to crime, arrest is not the only method to solve crime issues and prevent crime issues, but it is a huge part of it. And so when you see our crime plan that we put out back in the fall, that is part of it, is having an overarching plan that every officer understands and understands their role in, and then having a city and a command staff that supports them in doing that and drives them and rewards them for doing positive work. So yes, that is something that we are aware of, and we have been working to get those numbers up.
Okay, because our officers, we've made significant increases in their compensation. To quote Don Draper, that's what the money's for, as far as the positive inducements. Recently informed Democratic legislative assistants that LMPD has significantly de-emphasized traffic patrol in the past 5 years. You did make some commitments to increasing that, which I applaud you, considering, as you pointed out, the correlation between traffic patrol and enforcement and, negative correlation with deaths on the road. But you also described a significant hurdle within the department as far as attitudes towards traffic enforcement. That nobody joins the police to do traffic enforcement, that you didn't like doing it when you were on patrol. I get that. But as we do have a policy not to chase, would it maybe make better sense to take that out of LMPD then?
To take traffic enforcement out of LMPD? Okay, so a couple of things is one, there are some officers who really like traffic enforcement.
Chief?
They're a special breed.
Could you speak to that, and I apologize for interrupting, but could you speak to that as it would affect your budget? I want to make sure that we're focused on budget discussions here. So
Right.
if you were to try and move traffic from your division to somewhere else, where would that go, and what impact would that have on your budget?
So by statute, we can't do that. So enforcement mechanism as well as traffic accident reporting and things like that, by the way state law is written right now, has to be within a law enforcement agency, so we couldn't move it to another arm of metro government in that way.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Winkler.
Thank you. And Chief, thanks for being here. I have just a couple questions, hopefully. I think a couple of them are relatively straightforward. One you may have to come back to us on. The Pro Tactical contract, can you tell us what that's for?
Yes, sir. So Pro Team Tactical is a contract service that we have within the Summit Wellness Center, and it was one of our key objectives when we developed that. And that is a group of physical therapists. We have 3 full-time physical therapists as well as a strength coach. And if you look at the data as far as on-duty injuries and the amount of time spent off by officers and personnel, understanding that it's all in our contract, but Pro Team is actually accessed by all of the public safety sector, so police, fire, EMS, and corrections. Our number of days off due to work-related injuries in 2023 were 2,724 days missed of work. In '24, that dropped down to 715 days off, although we significantly increased our reporting of on-duty injuries. So what you're seeing is that officers are better able to navigate the workers' comp system in conjunction with Pro Team Tactical, but they're actually getting back to work faster and they're being able to be more productive. So when you talk about cost, I don't have the exact number, but I think we can offset that cost in the number of days returned to duty.
Thank you. I really was just trying to figure out what that contract, what exactly they did. And that was a good reminder because I think we funded that through ARP initially because the Wellness Center was funded through ARP and now I think should stay on, it sounds like a contract that we should maintain because it probably actually results in a cost savings.
That's been a huge benefit and I do think it is cost savings.
Thank you. My second question is, I know that for LMPD, the costs associated with fleet and with equipment, the headquarters, sits in the fleet and facilities budget. Outside of sort of common service like Workday, right, which is the HR platform for the entire metro enterprise. Are there other LMPD budget items that sit in other departments' budgets?
I'll turn that over to Mr. Jackson from OMB, but fleet and facilities are the primary ones that sit in other budgets.
Aaron Jackson with OMB. To my knowledge, what you described are the only expenses that are in other departments.
Okay, thank you. And then, Chief, the last question I've got for right now, can we get a detail around the FY26 hiring plans by month and sort of what is budgeted right now, calls for 3 recruit classes and probably has some staffing level associated with it month over month. Can we get those assumptions and then possibly have those mapped against our historical trends? And so what I'm trying to, sort of where my question is going, just so that you can maybe help steer what you send us in the right direction, is are those plans based on a hope of what we might get, or are they based on what is realistic given our historical trends?
Yes, sir, and we can get you those details, and just as an overall understanding is that it's a little bit of both, right? We understand that we have not recruited a full recruit class of 48, 3 classes of 48 in some time. The class that we just made offers to that will start in a couple of weeks will be 34, I believe, which is our highest number in several years. So we're heading in the right direction. We've also rehired 16, I believe, rehires this year that have retired and come back. And we have a lateral class of, I believe, 12 that will start later this month as well. So trending in the right direction, but I will 100% honest with you, even if we hit our max number, it's going to take several years to get our manpower back up to where it needs to be.
Yeah, thank you. And just for the record, my question is really more focused on, as you might imagine, as we're trying to address all of the requests that people have, we got to try to find where is there slack in what's budgeted. And so, if we're very optimistic, right, can we, ratchet that down slightly and then maybe relook at it at mid-year in December?
Yes, and that is something that we actually did. We removed 10 spots, I believe, from that request in order to show that savings that we don't anticipate.
Just an immediate follow-up. When you look at the number of recruits that are coming in, you said 34, I believe.
Yes, sir.
How does that compare to the number of officers that are going to be retiring?
So if you look year over year, we had, our total number of separations last year, hang on a second. We had 72 separations last year, which is down significantly from years past, where you had, 115 in 22, 194 in 21. So we are back to a sustainable level and above replacement level hiring.
That's my question. So 72 that separated, and there are 34 in this class, and there was a second class already? Or there has already been a class?
So planned this year that will be hired before the end of this fiscal year will be 91.
Okay.
And we anticipate, like I said, about 70
So we
separations.
will hopefully be in the positive this year.
Yes.
But again, it'll take several years to even think about catching up.
Yes.
Okay. Plus transfers, right. Okay, thanks. Councilman Piagentini. Councilman Piagentini. I'm told I'm not making it clear when I'm making that statement.
Well, thank you. I'm comfortable no matter what you say, so. So, Chief, thanks very much. First of all, let me just say, the year-over-year homicide numbers, and just as importantly, the year-over-year homicide clearance rate, which is significantly up year-over-year, is terrific. But obviously, it's not 100%, so more arrests and citations to come. So I feel like there'll be much more productivity coming for the police department soon. They sort of stole my thunder on the head count, but I want to talk 2 things. One is, I'll do the easy one first. There's been a reduction in advertising. I'm assuming a lot of that advertising had to do with recruiting. So can you talk about what's the strategy or why we're reducing the advertising budget, and what's the thought process around that?
Yes, and I think that's more of a reallocation of some of the funds and where we had some initiatives, but I'll let Deputy Chief Emily McKinley handle the details on that.
Thank you.
Again, Deputy Chief Emily McKinley. So yes, there was a reduction to the the recruitment budget as far as the advertising goes. And that's going to be supplemented with some ARP grant money that will expire this fiscal year. And so we're able to supplement and reallocate money that way.
Excellent, thank you. And then the only other thing I wanted to address, it's not in this budget currently, but there's been a lot of discussion, and I know many of my colleagues and I are very interested in moving forward with a training facility, like truly a regional, top-notch training facility that not only supports LMPD, but supports other police departments in Jefferson County and maybe the region. Can you talk about what you have to do currently related to training? And then if we had a regional training facility, how would that impact you from a productivity or cost point of view? Like what impact would that have if we started in the process and ultimately had a regional training facility from a budgetary perspective?
So first of all, I'm very appreciative that it seems like it's near unanimous support for the need for a training facility for LMPD and kind of at large for public safety sector. Currently, obviously, we do not have an outdoor range, which means we are very limited in our ability to shoot and do firearms-related training, so we have to go to other facilities. We do not have a driving track, so we can't do any driving here. We have to drive down to Richmond. So we have to pay for, there's a incurred cost that comes with all of that, as well as classroom facilities and things like that. So the ability to have a functional, state-of-the-art training facility here locally, whether it's where other people also, agencies from the region can come and train as well and make use of that, is going to reduce operational costs from the standpoint of it reduces travel, reduces wear and tear on vehicles, reduces basic range maintenance costs. We have a lead-free range right now, which is about 3 to 4 times more expensive to operate than what an outdoor range would be. And it increases our overall capabilities, which I think reduces liability.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, and just to be clear, there's both what I would call direct and indirect costs. In other words, direct, things like, cost to use those facilities or to go, but also indirect in time and productivity as well. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you. Councilwoman Marie.
Thank you very much. So I was looking at the table that we've got here of the number of officers and sergeants, et cetera. And I noticed in FY18, we had 1,027 officers, and as of 4/1/25, we have 757, so we're down about 275. However, our sergeants have gone up from 164 to 168. Our lieutenants have gone up from 56 to 61. And it's an accusation in any agency that administrators tend to be top-heavy. And that's kind of what it looks like here. We have fewer officers on patrol, but we're increasing the number of sergeants and lieutenants. Are these sergeants and lieutenants going out on patrol? Are they out there doing the same duties that need to be done?
Yes and no. So I agree with you that it is always a concern when you start to incur more bureaucratic administrative costs for higher level folks. And that's something that we had a conversation with earlier. Actually, today we were talking about it. But some of those are, frankly, it was a greater need for supervision. We restructured our patrol divisions and went to the 12-hour shifts, which incurred another sergeant per shift that we picked up. And then we've created things like our force investigations unit. That's another sergeant and a lieutenant that their entire job is to review and give feedback on use of force. We've restructured our training division that incurred another sergeant or two. And so there have been administrative additions, and we're doing it in the process right now with our manpower study as well as internally as we talk about some of our positions. Looking at, I just got a report, I don't have it in front of me, but how many people actually are direct reports to people in supervisory positions? So how many supervisory positions do we have that don't actually have anyone reporting to them? And so evaluating whether or not we need to make changes in that. I share your concern on that, and it's something we are paying attention to.
Okay, thank you very much. That brings up another question. Given the consent decree and our intention to go ahead and go with it, which I think is really important, I appreciate that. How is that with all the different oversight and et cetera, how is that going to affect the number of administrative positions?
So because we got ahead of a lot of this and we structured all of this out, there were several additional positions that were created. And as of right now, I don't anticipate any significant changes in the command staff structure as a result of that. I think we've made a lot of those already.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Parker.
Thank you, and thank you, Chief. I have a question about the Justice Assistant Grant that was received last year for like $1.3 million. It was a federal grant. Could you tell us what it is, what you used it for, and is it a grant that you expect every year? And if not, do those things that were funded in that, will we need to fund them ongoing?
So the JAG grants are something we've gotten that particular grant, I don't know how many years, but it is a grant that we continually renew, and that is primarily used for technology that goes in our vehicles, so mobile data terminals, the computers that go inside of cars. And that's something that we renew pretty much every year.
Okay, good. And then there was 2.4 million allocated for work rehab injury prevention services. What is that, and is that related to the pro-tactical performance that we just talked about a few minutes ago?
I'm sorry, ma'am, which one, what are you referencing?
It was on the graph that we got. Let's see if I can find it. Let me look it up. I don't want to take up people's time. So I'll get back in the queue and maybe you can, somebody will know what I'm talking about in a minute.
It may just be labeled differently in your packet than mine, so I'm sure we'll figure it out. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you for jumping back in the queue, Councilwoman. Councilman Herndon.
Yes, I want to follow up on Councilman Lininger's thoughts about the traffic folks. And you said state law does not allow you to do that?
Yes, sir.
And would it be helpful if state law did? Do other states do that? I think I remember reading, I can't put my finger on it, that the police department in Tempe, Arizona was able to shift some of those lesser duties that required lesser training to other personnel, and then would free up the very highly trained, highly paid folks, and rightly so, to take the other duties. And if so, would that help you eat into your 250 officer shortfall faster from a budgetary point of view?
Yes, sir. We are able to use traffic control officers, so TCOs, for some of that type of work, so taking traffic accidents and things like that. We've also looked at some contract options that I'm not sure it'd actually be cheaper on that end. We've just now started exploring that. I can tell you, if we're talking about traffic enforcement and saving lives, I think from a legislative standpoint, what I would request is that we all push for automated enforcement. That's something that's currently not allowed by state law, but I think things like red light cameras, where tickets are issued automatically, would be a huge benefit for us in helping combat some of that. And
Has that been addressed in any way in Frankfurt?
yes, it's been brought up several times and shot down several times, I believe.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilman, the argument from Frankfurt has been, I'm not saying it will be again, but the argument from Frankfurt has been that in order to use cameras, you have to have a front license plate and a rear license plate. Kentucky only requires a rear license plate, and so that would require changes in different parts of the statute. One would think you can walk and chew gum.
Mr.
Which
Chair.
you think
But yeah,
shouldn't be
if it's helpful and it gets us eating into that shortage number faster, I would certainly.
That has been pushed back.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to this directly to Councilman Herndon, if that's okay? More accurately,
Through the chair.
yes, Mr. Chair, more accurately, the state has objected to what has been referred to as RoboCop. In other words, systems that can write citations without human intervention, okay? With that said, what I can say is that it is my opinion, and I believe many others, that even under existing law, which we do this all the time, If a camera caught somebody breaking any law, including a traffic law, and then a police officer, a peace officer as defined by state statute, reviewed that video, they could be written a citation off of that review. So that is not automated 100%, but we can use some technology under current law, and the objection from the state has been, again, what badly used terminology, RoboCop, where there is no human intervention. That's what the state law prevents, the lack of human intervention.
Does any state in the country use RoboCop? Is that?
Oh, many states, many
And
states.
then that's, yeah.
Correct.
Right, okay.
So am I hearing members of this committee suggesting that the chief of police may want to look into the possibility of taking advantage of opportunities to have police officers who could remotely write tickets based on what is showing up on their screens? Councilman Syme, is that something that might come up at some point?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been passionate about this for a long time. I actually testified in Frankfurt about this situation. We need this technology, and the workaround that Councilman Piagentini has described, I think will fit right in, and we could start utilizing that technology immediately with a little bit more funding, but I think that needs to be looked further into, and then once we can get state law passed, we'll continue to work on that, but we have got to start utilizing these cameras, and if we can do a workaround with a police officer reviewing the camera and issuing the citation, then let's do it and get it done. We're clocking them doing 94 mile an hour in my residential Fairdale area, so please, let's work this in if we can. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I kind of want to move on from this. So two last comments on this, and then we're moving on to other budget items. So Councilman Winkler?
Yeah, so Chief, I think on behalf of the committee, we'd ask maybe that you could do an analysis of what that would cost. And if we can get that before the end of this budget cycle would be great, but if not, as soon as possible thereafter. And I just want to make the other comment sort of tangential to Councilman Symes. This is not a revenue generating opportunity. I think to Councilman Symes, we've got, speeders, but more importantly, Jefferson County has an unacceptable number of pedestrian deaths, and those are largely caused by people running red lights. And at the end of the day, this is a public safety issue, keeping people alive, crossing the street. Thank you.
Councilman Hudson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to chase this rabbit back into the budget hole, instead of having, or in lieu of having a police officer review the video, I would also ask if it would be possible to have a civilian review that, because number one, we're short police officers, number two, civilians are cheaper.
Thank you. Chief, I'm guessing that our requests are clear.
Yes, sir.
Great, thanks. Councilman Herndon, I did not mean to cut you off. Was that the last, did you have more questions, or were you finished? Okay, thank you. Specific to this? Yes. Okay.
But, so the last piece of that is how that might affect the overall 250 number and the staffing number that's coming back in your report, right? If we can deal with traffic somewhere else, would that have an impact on the staffing number as well? I think that's another very critical piece of it. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, we are going to move back to questions about policing and move a little bit away from, we've been policing, but we're going to move away from cameras and remote. Councilwoman Chapel.
Thank you. I believe LMPD's budget is expected to increase this year by 12%. Given that non-fatal shootings are down 28% and homicides are down 33.3%, what is the justification for giving more money to LMPD if the current levels seem to be fighting crime just fine? I understand that number is not zero and that we would like to get it to, I guess, down 100%. But I'm just wondering, at what point do we shift money from LMPD's budget to ancillary offices, such as the Office for Violence Prevention? Because isn't that the goal, to be a little proactive instead of reactive?
Yes, ma'am. And when you look at our budget requests, there are no new contracts. There's no additional personnel that we're requesting. These are year-over-year cost increase in both contracts and personnel. So and we actually have built in, I'm sure I'll get a question about it, about how we have a $2 million projected reduction in overtime cost. And that is about overtime management. We understand that we have to put people out there and we have to fill these gaps, and that's going to have to be done primarily on overtime. But we're looking at ways to manage that overtime in a more responsible way so that it doesn't cost as much. So we are actually not requesting more stuff or more people above what we were already getting. This is just general cost increase.
It's very scary. Thank you for that. In my opinion, LMPD has had the lowest community engagement that I've seen in my adult cognizant years. Meet Your Beat events have ceased. My advisory board is dissolving under my nose. I heard that the police chief and the majors don't attend the volunteer appreciation dinner, and furthermore, volunteers have to pay $15 a ticket to attend that dinner in their honor. Many of my council members support their respective LMPD divisions with things from money with their limited NDF and CIF funds for things like Shop with the Cop, flock cameras, and National Night Out. How is this budget supporting the community and the relationship between LMPD and the community?
Well, yes, ma'am. I'm 100% firm believer in transparency and community engagement. And one of the things that the initiatives that I've taken on and through the help of Assistant Chief Burbrink is we're doing a complete reevaluation of our community engagement processes within the division. Prior to me taking over, community engagement was primarily at the division level driven by the chief's office. And I'm a firm believer that majors are the chiefs of their divisions, and they need to be the ones that listen to their divisions and respond to them in community engagement ways in the way that the personnel in their divisions are requesting, so, and the citizens that live there. And so we're in the process of kind of reevaluating how we're doing some of that at a both department level scale and the division level. Can't necessarily tell you that I've gotten it right to this point, but it's something that I know that we're in the process of reevaluating.
Sure. And then last question, I'll get back into the queue. In a March 20th WLKY article, Chief Humphrey, you had said, "We signed up to do local municipal police work, and that's what we plan to do. When someone commits a crime in our city, we will enforce that. We have no intent or the authority to enforce immigration orders." With that said, can you please explain the $10,000 grant awarded to LMPD for their ICE Derby City Task Force?
Yes, ma'am. So that's actually has not been awarded to us. So those are anticipated funds from pre-existing relationships that we have with those agencies. So that's not just ICE, actually, that's Homeland Security in general. And our Homeland Security unit does communicate and work with them, but we have no details, we have no operations that we have done with them, and we have not recovered any funds from them.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Owen.
My questions have been answered for the moment. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Purvis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. I just wanted to know your classes that will be graduating soon. Do you have any plans to add more officers to first and second division?
Yes, ma'am. So we evaluate when classes are coming out based on the vacancies that occur because of either retirements or people moving into specialty units. And Colonel Burbrink over a patrol makes those decisions of exactly what amount of manpower goes based on the needs of each division. And I think we've actually, in the last couple of classes, we've weighed heavily towards the first and second divisions.
Do you know how many vacancies there are in both divisions?
I can get you the vacancies exactly for each of the divisions. Yes, ma'am.
That would help me explain to constituents that have concerns about either lack of or no response at all when they call. So I try to help them understand that there is a shortage of patrol, but I don't know if they don't believe me or they just don't want to hear it. So if I can have some concrete evidence to provide them with, maybe they would be understanding. But, you know, I am assuring them that you do have classes going on and that we're trying our best to increase the patrol in both divisions.
I appreciate that, ma'am, and while we do face legitimate manpower issues, I will not rely on that as an excuse, and we'll do everything we can to make sure that the service that we give those communities is what the community expects.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Lininger, your last question began quite the conversation and actually ended up looking like we might find a way to squirrel away some cash in the budget. So thank you for the question, and we're back in queue for you. Ask another great one. Yes, sir. So typically what I try to do is call on folks who have not been called on yet. Councilman Lininger was the first person we called on. I've been through a long list I'm to the point where folks who have already spoken are clicking back in. I am going to go ahead and call on Councilman Lininger, Councilman Winkler, and then you're next in the queue. You bet. Councilman Lininger.
Thank you, Chair, and sorry, Councilman Bratcher. So my next question is, we have spent $1.25 million on ShotSpotter since 2017. How many arrests has that led to?
I can't give you that exact number. To give you an understanding of how we function with ShotSpotter and what it's there for, the direct arrest number is not necessarily the biggest benefit of ShotSpotter. It's the connection of scene to scene and weapon to weapon and weapon to specific scene. So as an officer responds to a ShotSpotter run, we understand that the likelihood of me catching you with a gun in your hand responding to a ShotSpotter run is slim, and we have made some of those arrests. We have unfortunately discovered numerous people that have already been shot on those scenes where we did not receive another call for service. The other thing that we require officers to do is get out and canvass those areas and collect shell casings. And out of that, our NIBIN unit is able to make links between crime scene to crime scene and it assists greatly in prosecutions.
Okay, so I guess I'd like to know that number and then some of those other ancillary numbers to get a good idea of what kind of return we are getting on the money spent on ShotSpotter.
Yes, sir.
Then the next question I had, under professional services in the detail budget, what does that line item entail, and why is there a jump of 20% in the recommended budget when we only spent 39% of the total budget last year?
I think that might be the pro team tactical contract, but I can verify that.
Okay.
Tell me the specialty service detail?
No, this is the professional services.
Yes, so that is the Shelton Forensics, which is our mental health services, and pro team, so the services that are coming out of the wellness unit.
Okay. And then, so we only spent 39% of the requested last year, but now we're making a 20% jump. Is there, can you describe why that's been requested?
That's the increase in the.
Okay. And then my other question, and then I'll get back in the queue. We have spent so far we spend $419,000 per year for the lease for the wellness center. At the end of the lease, we will have nearly paid off, in 3 years, we'll have nearly paid off the total purchase price of that building through our leasing. Do we plan to extend that lease, which is fairly expensive?
So that is actually being leased from the Police Foundation, who is the owner. And I think once I think the terms of the lease change once it's paid off, but I can get you those details. I don't know if we have. I'll ask if it's okay, Megan Metcalf with the mayor's office.
Yeah,
so specifics on that. And while she comes up, I have gotten your answer. We've had 9,293 citations year to date.
Okay, thank you.
I believe Ms. Metcalf will have an answer for us at a later date.
Oh.
Thank you, Ms. Metcalf.
Thank you. I'll drop out of the queue for now.
Thank you, Councilman, for limiting yourself to 3. That makes it so much easier on me up front. Councilman Winkler.
Thank you. Chief, I cannot remember, I know we talked about this last year, but I can't remember if it ended up being in the budget or not, which was an analysis on the proper, we keep going on the what's fully staffed number, but that last analysis I think was done in like 2012. Was that in the budget, and have we done that analysis, or is that ongoing?
Yes, sir, that's ongoing. That began about a month and a half ago, and we expect it to be done sometime during the summer.
Okay, thank you. Can you speak to the reduction in the supplies and safety equipment budget? Is that just stuff moving around that was hard to track, or is it actually a reduction in safety equipment?
So it's a little bit of both. So we had basically two safety equipment budget items that one combined, but two, we had some large purchases that had to be made out of that budget, so that's where that increase came from in the last year. We thought that it would roll over into this budget year, but we were able, Todd Richardson, our health and safety officer, did an outstanding job of getting a lot of that stuff in bulk. That stuff being the hard plates, the rifle plates that every officer now has, as well as helmets that every officer now has, and we anticipated that would take longer, but he was able to work out a deal, get it for cheaper than what we anticipated. And just as a heads up, those are recurring costs. They have to be replaced every 5 years. And he is working on a plan to lessen that one-time hit and make sure that that's managed in a less obtrusive way.
Perfect. Can you all send us a detail of where the capital funds for the state and federal forfeiture funds are planned?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did we sell the helicopter, and how much did we get for it?
I don't know.
Okay, because that was a key topic last year, so I'd be interested to get that. And then my last question.
I know a new helicopter should come online here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. So my last question relates to the consent decree monitor. I understand, I think there's two schools of thought or two arguments to be made about the consent decree monitor budget being an LMPD. One, you would argue that, sort of fully burdening the costs of the department with the costs of monitoring it, that makes sense. On the other hand, I think there's an argument to be made that being the body that pays for its own oversight can also be problematic. My question is, does LMPD or will LMPD have any involvement in the selection of the independent monitor?
So this is a conversation that we've had with the mayor's office, and I requested that we are not part of the RFP process. I think for obvious reasons. I think it looks better, but two, I think it functions better if we're the ones that primarily going to be evaluated by it, that we're not the ones that are selecting them.
Councilman Bratcher.
Two questions, Chief. If I'm going to say a statement, just tell me if it's true or false, okay? If LMPD arrests a juvenile and that juvenile needs to go to a facility where the CW doesn't interfere, do they go to out of county?
Yes, sir. They go to Adair County.
Do they have to have one of your officers in custody with that juvenile for the whole time until he's dropped off?
Not all the way until they go to Adair County, but we do spend a significant amount of time here until they're processed with the CDW, and then they're transported to Adair County.
If there was a facility here, which we're all hoping one day happens, would that help your man-hour situation a little bit at least?
Absolutely.
And the second question is, when I was in the military, I got a ticket from a sheriff's office. And why doesn't our sheriff in this county, what would it take? Couldn't they help you guys, like you're talking about traffic and splitting up duties? Couldn't the sheriffs help?
They have all the law enforcement powers that we have in the state of Kentucky. I know they have some very specific responsibilities when it comes to civil orders and that type of stuff that we don't. And so primarily, that's traditionally been the way that the sheriff's office in Jefferson County has worked. However, they do enforcement work as well. So I would have to defer to the sheriff's office for any answers on that.
Would it help if they took on some of the duties?
I would not complain.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, sir.
Councilwoman Hawkins.
Thank you, Chair. I'll go ahead and pass. My question's already been asked.
Thank you. Councilwoman Woolridge.
I will also pass. Thank you.
Councilman Hudson.
So I want to ask about ARP funding. There's just south of $500,000 left to be spent within the next 5 to 6 weeks. Can you give a level of confidence on whether or not that will be fully expended?
Yes, all of our ARP funding is accounted for and will be spent, but I think it's actually by the end of the calendar year that it has to be spent, but it is already allocated.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilwoman Chapel.
In the fall, Metro Council approved a contract for $350,000 to Sigma Squared for a tool to analyze bias in police interactions. Where did the money come from in LMPD's budget to pay for this? Assuming that it's already been paid for, so it should have been in fiscal year '25?
Yes, it was built into last year's budget. Yes, ma'am.
And what bucket of money? I just don't know of many departments that have $350,000 kind of laying around.
So that was in our software budget, initially under safety supplies, but that was something that we had planned for earlier in the year.
So some of these budgets might be inflated.
I wouldn't necessarily say that, no, ma'am.
Okay. Talks of the LMPD headquarters occurred before my time on council, so this could have been a subject matter that was a hot subject back in the day, but we recently learned that it was going to cost $72 million in order to complete the build-out for the AT&T building, which we purchased. Last year, we approved $5 million in the budget, and I had assumed that that was the entire renovation cost for that project. So it was very startling to me to discover that the actual cost for that project is $72 million. I think it breaks down to like $15 million a floor. And it seems like you all are doing a great job operating out of the Edison Center. I'm not saying stay there, but do we need this facility with such bells and whistles? And is there a plan that the public or Metro Council can see that outlines what this facility is and a justification for that $72 million?
Yes, ma'am. So one, I would say that operating out of the Edison Center and about 5 other different buildings as a command staff is not as functional as we make it look. It takes a lot of effort in order to just have a meeting. That being said, I can get you the plans from facilities on everything that's going in there. When we talk about bells and whistles, it's going to be really nice to have a modern facility where we can have meetings and the entire department can actually work out of one place. On the back end of that, what that also allows us to do is move the 4th Division out of the division in Central Park, where it's been a health hazard for 15 plus years, and they will move over into the Edison Center.
And 4th Division serves most of my district, so I'm very excited about that. I don't like going into that building, but I do like interacting with my officers. But I would like to look at that project and again, get a justification for $72 million, because that's a large sum for renovations.
No, I
We could build a
100%.
whole new facility, probably.
I 100% agree with you, and that was one of my projects when I became an assistant chief in 2021. And I'm not in the construction business, so I can't really explain why things have, exploded in cost and changed the way that they have, but that's what they tell me.
Sure, I might quit as a council person and become a contractor for you
Yeah,
also.
I think we're all in the wrong business.
Right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Simon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple questions about the flock cameras. We're using more and more flocks. We're getting requests for more and more. More of my colleagues are having to buy them through our funding resources. Is there any competition for flock cameras? Are we getting any discounts? Are we getting any bulk or multi-purchase rates? Is this a monopolized company?
So the short answer is Flock really does have a corner on the market. That being said, this is a conversation we had earlier. I do think it is worth reapproaching Flock, considering the amount of cameras that we buy and the benefit that it is. When you talk about the use of technology to supplement manpower and make things a lot safer for people, it's clearly become a technology that is one of the most utilized technologies that we have.
One more question then. Who funds the CRAB, the Civilian Review and Accountability Board? Is that through LMPD?
No, sir.
Are we looking at that when we're asking for the $750,000 for another accountability mechanism?
No, sir, those will take on two separate roles and oversight. One, the monitor for the community agreement is specific to reporting out and monitoring and evaluating our ability to achieve everything that's in that several hundred-page document versus the role of the CRAB in oversight.
And what's the role of CRAB?
Excuse me?
The role of CRAB?
So they work very closely with the Office of the Inspector General as far as approving and reviewing the investigations that are initiated by that office.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Councilman. Chief, as you enter into the conversations with Flock about the cost, you might make them aware, I'm sure they already are, that there are other companies that are breaking into this market that are very competitive. Our challenge, as you know, is we already have the equipment, and so we're already down that road. There's an expense that we're already involved in, and it's challenging to move out. It doesn't mean it can't be done. Correct. And there are companies that are anxious to help us do that. I'm not advocating that we switch necessarily, but we are in a better position today than we were just 3 years ago.
100% agree.
Great, thank you. I neglected to mention that we were joined virtually by Councilwoman Parrish Wright and in chambers by Councilwoman Hawkins. So I apologize. They have both been involved in the meeting for some time now. As a matter of fact, Councilwoman Wright has been patiently waiting her turn. So Councilwoman Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for recognizing me, and thank you all for your patience. I am still working class, and so I do take advantage of the hybrid meetings. I know some of you are irritated by that, but I think it means something for us to be able to participate. These are part-time positions with full-time responsibilities, so I don't do it to neglect you or my constituents, but I can't drive and be on video, so I have to pull over to attend. Thank you, Chief. I've been participating, and I'm thank you for your forthcoming around the budgetary concerns. I hope that everybody embraces the ultra surveillance as well as much as the innovative ways we need to have hybrid meetings and be able to attend. My questions are similar to mine from last year. Around one, is there any updates around the expenditures around the helicopter? I know there was some changes made. And forgive me, I don't have my notes with me in my vehicle. The other question is about there were monies allotted for your officers to live in the communities they serve, which I think is a great thing. And I understand that it's not being pushed because of a lot of things going on. So I think that amount is up to $1.5 million or around $1 million. And now we have a bunch of worthy organizations that are being gutted and cut that I'm trying to get down to hear from this evening. Is there a way that, what's up with that money? Is there a way that you all are willing to reallocate that money to other Louisville Metro government employees that are working and living in their communities, or to organizations that are doing the work? Because the work of these organizations that are being cut, either EAF or from the mayor's budget or whatever, helps reduce the violence as well. You've said many times, it's not just on you all to reduce violence and reduce crime and give the community what they need. There's worthy organizations that are doing the work. So sometimes it feels like it might be easier for those organizations to get funding through you all if you have that funding available. If you haven't, just give me an update on the helicopter expenditures and the monies for the officer incentive for them to live in the communities they serve.
Yes, ma'am. So the total cost on the helicopter, I believe, was around $4 million, and I think that's already been taken care of as far as the purchase and upfit of the helicopter. And like I said, it should be finished in the next month or so, I believe. And I did get the cost on selling the old helicopter. We got $225,000 for that. And then as far as the living in certain census tracts, there are no officers that have taken advantage of that program.
And how much is that in that funding for the program, please?
I can get you that exact number, but.
Okay, thank you. And last, Chief Villarreal had said that she would be willing to see how that money could be used for groups that are doing meaningful work. Or is this something that you can talk to the mayor about, or is this a decision you can make? Just want to see how we could. I think it would be really good for those groups to get connected to what you all are doing and help expand the capacity of the work you're doing, because that work is also anti-violence work.
Yes, ma'am, I'm willing to talk to anybody and take considerations from anyone, but as far as reallocating that money, I have to look into that further.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilwoman Hawkins.
Thank you. I had some of the same questions, but one of them I didn't hear any answer on, and that was has any of the funds that was allocated for the incentives for police to live in the community, has any of that happened?
No, ma'am, no one has
No one's
taken
moved
advantage
in
of
any of the
that.
communities?
No one has moved, I believe the stipulations on it is that it has to be a new homeowner moving into that census tract, and no one has done that.
Okay, so as much housing as we need, and we put money into housing, I'm sure that we can get some of these officers in some of these communities with all this money we're putting in housing and police. So, yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Bachon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, crew, thank you all for being here. My question is we, from multiple council members, and I think we've kind of alluded to it here today, that we use our NDF funds to help support things like flock cameras, National Night Out, Shop with a Cop, things of that nature. Is there a number that we have individually from all council members given to LMPD that we can now maybe incorporate into a one-time budgetary number to the budget for that stuff?
That is a very interesting question, sir, and I'd have to go back and look at that individually since the way those come in are usually one-off requests that get approved. I'd have to go back and work with finance to tally that up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Woolridge.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief and LMPD for being here. My question goes back to, I know square one, the data analytics was brought up earlier today, so just wondering that 350,000, is this or is this not a true statement? That I know the reforms y'all have been doing over the last 2 years goes along with the past consent decree that was originally put in place by the DOJ. Is it a true statement to say that the reason that was already budgeted in another bucket from last year is because of those reforms, or not?
Yes, ma'am, we anticipated that everything related to the consent decree would have started months ago, and that it was, that $350,000 was for a partial year allocation for hiring a monitor. That obviously didn't happen.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just want to make sure. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Winkler.
Thank you. Chief, the LMPD, I believe, sits on or is a member of the Safe Louisville Plan Task Force, right? Specifically the one addressing the high utilizers. Can you speak to, has the work of that work group resulted in reductions in the number of runs LMPD is having to make? And can you quantify that, and do we anticipate that will continue?
So I'm not going to give you the numbers because I'll mess it up off the top of my head, and I apologize for that. But what I will say is that just recently I went to roll call with the Downtown Area Patrol, which that's based out of, our officers that work with the high utilizers are based out of. And one of the things that they actually asked for was an additional officer or two to be part of that program because of the burden that it has taken off of them. And so they are not just helping with our high utilizers in the downtown area, but they are helping the DROs in every single division deal with those high utilizers.
Perfect. And so related to that, I'd also ask if, we can just continue to look at the deflection work that we're doing and whether additional investments there would further lessen the burden on our sworn duty officers?
Yes, sir. There's been tens of thousands of runs that have been deflected through Metro Safe and the deflection program. And now that it is 24 hours in all parts of the county, I think by the end of this year, we'll have really good data on how much has been deflected.
Okay. The last question I have is, I know in the mayor's budget address and in the executive budget highlights, and you started today talking about this too, highlighted a $2 million reduction in overtime. Tell me what I'm reading wrong here, because when I read the budget, I see a $5 million increase in overtime. I show FY25 non-scheduled overtime at 17.2 million, and the budgeted amount for this coming is 22.2 million. Where's the discrepancy in the 2 million reduction versus what seems to be a $5 million increase?
Yes, sir. So what actually happened, I believe our initial budget for unscheduled overtime was 17 million. And at the mid-year budget adjustment, we were projected to spend 24 million, and that was at the mid-year budget adjustment, and we were able to cut that down to now what's projected to be 22 million. And so that's that $2 million gap. And what we did was we basically put a different emphasis on the oversight of what we're doing with overtime and how we're spending it, and making sure that the manpower that we're putting out there on overtime is actually what we need and not just because it's available.
Okay, so just for clarity, as of March 31st, we'd only spent 16 million. So we were projecting to spend another 8 million in the last quarter. That's been reduced to now only spending an incremental 6 million. So just for clarity, the 2 million savings is in the FY25, this current fiscal year's budget, and it's not actually it is a savings from the revised increase. I know that's a lot of things to follow, but we had a budget, we increased it, now we don't need to quite increase it as much, but that's all this year, not reflective of next year's budget. So next year's budget doesn't reflect a $2 million reduction from the original FY25 budget. It reflects a $2 million reduction of the revised FY25 budget.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Joseph.
Hey, thank you for being here. My question, I seen that in the budget, it was talking about, I think, right at $3.7 million for vehicles and whatnot. Can you kind of give an idea just of what the life of a police vehicle is, the average life of it and whatnot?
So I'll kind of give you an overview of what our fleet looks like right now. We have about 1,400 vehicles, and 26 of those are over 200,000 miles. The vast majority are somewhere between 100,000 and 150,000 miles.
Ideally, when do you all typically, is there a magic time of when you try to retire them?
I would like to get rid of a lot of them a long time ago, but that's not the case. We work with fleet to monitor the turnover of vehicles, and ultimately they're the ones at the shop that say that vehicles need to be taken out of service because of maintenance issues.
And then they can just be sold on the market after that? Like, after that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My next question I had, when it comes to school, like crossing guards and whatnot, do we know how many we're short?
That's always an interesting
day-by-day
number
question?
to try to find. Yes.
Sure. So, question about school crossing guards. So we are allocated 112 school crossing guards. Currently, we have 78. So we're about 25 or so short. So we're always hiring. I know Amanda with our crossing guard program is always at job fairs, recruiting new traffic guards. She is. I think she sent to everybody the QR code to include in your newsletters, so we would encourage you all to include that in your newsletters to get new traffic guards. We have put the posting on hold until the end of June, so we're not looking to hire anybody because the school year is ending, so we look to do a hiring blitz come summer so we can get new traffic guards up for the new school year.
Thank you. And the last question I had, and if I wasn't listening, I apologize, I thought it was, but do we have a right-added number of how many police you would say we are short right now?
So we are allotted for 1,330, and right now we're just at about 1,050.
If I were to ask you, from your perspective, what we can do as a council, is there?
Well, in all honesty, I think as far as a whole of government approach to working for the police department, I think we're in a better situation now than we have been in years. I think the relationship between council, the police department, and the mayor's office has been really beneficial. I mean, if you look at the last contract renegotiation that you all approved, I think it's gone a long way. The support that we've gotten and the feedback that we've gotten from council, I think has been beneficial, and I think we're going in the right direction. I think we're in a tough job market, and we've got to look at new approaches for getting people through the door.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Councilwoman Best.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief, for being here, and thank all of you all for being here for your service and dedication. I just wanted to touch on the flock cameras a little bit. What is the cost for those roughly? Is it near $4,000 per camera per year?
$2,500.
$2,500. And are we looking to possibly incorporate the cost of the flock cameras into the overall city budget, or will we continue, I guess, for council members to kind of pay for those out of neighborhood funds?
Yes, so we do have funds budgeted within our budget for flock cameras, both the maintenance and expansion of the camera system. And then we also make expansions based on council requests.
Do you know how many are currently covering?
We have 283 flock cameras. That's both within our budget and council funded.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rui.
Thank you very much. So I would like to look at the capital status report on our document here. It's on page 14.
That doesn't help them. Councilwoman, they don't have the document you're referring to, so if you could give them a sense of what it is that you're looking
Okay,
for.
so we're looking at Metro Watch camera expansions. And just, I want to first clarification, what does actuals LTD mean?
That's actuals year to date.
No, that's YTD. What is LTD?
I'm sorry.
Hi, Angie Dunn, CFO. That's life to date,
Okay, so what does that mean?
like the life of the asset, I think,
Okay.
right?
All right, stick around.
Okay.
So, Councilwoman, what you're asking about is project P000, it's 295 at the end, and it was budgeted at 200,000. I believe that's what you're asking about.
Yeah, that's what,
Okay,
that's the one particular with that one. So it was budgeted $500,000. It's encumbered $381,000. Actuals year-to-date is $118,079, and actuals LTD is $118,079. Why are those the same? And why hasn't it been spent?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry. I think I found the page you're on too.
Oh, good. That would help. So yeah, it's, the actuals year-to-date is $118,079, and the actuals live-to-date is $118,079. So you were budgeted $500,000, it's encumbered $381. So why is the year-to-date and the live-to-date the same? And do you anticipate spending that before the start of the new fiscal year?
I believe we've already spent that. There's nothing left remaining in that budget.
I think you have multiple lines of a similar project, so each year you get like a different appropriation to it. If you'll notice, like remaining budget shows 0. So as those are added onto and spent down, so that's what it looks like. It would probably be best to get you a reconciliation.
Okay.
Instead of trying to, on the fly, provide a detailed explanation of what's on this report.
If I may,
Do the same thing for the next line then also, line 130?
Councilwoman, the only one that has a balance is index 130. That started with $1 million. They've encumbered $16,650, and they have a remaining balance of $983,350.
Yeah. So do we intend on having that spent before the end of the fiscal year then?
Yes, ma'am. Those funds have already been encumbered.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Was there another one? Okay. Councilman, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, there
You
was.
still have the floor.
Another one is on line 145, public camera integration system. And so the encumbrance and the remaining budget are identical on that one. Can you explain that?
Yeah, so that's our funds related to our FUSIS program, and what that is where we collaborate with local businesses in order to be able to have our real-time crime center, be able to access footage from their cameras.
Oh, okay, thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am.
Thank you. Councilman Lininger.
Thank you again, Chair. Can you tell me what the total, and, similar to Councilman Joseph's question, what the total fuel costs for LMPD are?
No, I cannot, but I'm sure we can find that
Okay.
for you.
Yeah, I would really like that information. And then I wanted to go back to the overtime question, because when I'm looking here in the detail budget book on overtime, for non-scheduled overtime, we had 17.2 million budgeted last year, an actual spending as of March 31st of 16.2, rounding up, million, and then scheduled overtime, 631,000, and just under 10,000 year-to-date is March 31st, and I imagine some of that came in Derby. But then for both, the total for the mayor's recommended budget is 22.2 million. So that's not a reduction. That is a 5 million increase. So where else do I need to be looking?
So, like I said, that was a reduction in what was anticipated mid-year of what we thought we were going to end up at before we made some of the adjustments to our overtime.
Okay, so, but in the requested budgets, this is a 5 million increase compared to last year's actual budget.
Overall from last year's budget, but not from last year's initial budget, yes, but not from the mid-year adjustment.
Okay, but that's, that I'm not talking about, the mid-year is we adjust to what we actually spent. But I'm talking about, we are asking for a 5 million increase from last year's budget.
Aaron, if you'll introduce yourself.
Sure, Aaron Jackson with OMB. I think the response is, and the chief was correct, the estimate at the time we produced the budget was 24 million, and then we took 2 million, there was a reduction of 2 million off that number to get to the proposed 22 million. That's
Okay.
reflected here.
But fundamentally, this is from last year's enacted budget for fiscal year 24-25, a 5 million increase.
It is an increase.
Okay, I just want to be apples to apples.
Yes. it
All right,
is
Yeah,
an
I'm
increase.
I'm sorry if I was confusing. It was from the original proposed budget for next year, we reduced that by 2 million. Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you. Councilman Piagentini.
Thank you. Chief, I just wanted to clarify maybe comments that Councilman Batchon made, and then, and hopefully sum them up into a policy that also kind of ties into some of this overtime also. The discussions in, for example, appropriations over the last several years, we've seen council members, whether it's flock cameras, overtime, or things like community outreach, right? And I would put National Night Out, and other community events like that. And we just had one recently, I think, that Councilman Hawkins was sponsoring, a lot of us threw into. I think what we're trying to get at is we really don't want to keep doing that in a piecemeal manner. And I remember, for example, Councilman Baker was requesting overtime as part of an appropriation. I understood the intent and supported his intent, and at the same time, that really needs to be funded out of the LMPD budget one way or the other, right? Even if it's unexpected overtime that's needed to be done, we want, if all 26 council members start doing that, then we actually start to lose visibility and maybe even lose strategy around what we're doing. So whether we can, if we have to make any adjustments this year, let's make them before we pass this, and then moving forward, we just want to make sure that And this is really for the council members too, so if council members like, hey, I need overtime, great, go talk to your major and go get some overtime, but, funding it individually out of our NDF accounts really becomes this sort of disjointed, weird thing, and I think actually takes away from what the purpose of NDF funding is. So yeah, I mean, if we need to make an adjustment this year to account for the things the different patrol divisions need to do community outreach, or to ensure we have the right, it sounds like we have the right level of overtime. I don't think overtime's the issue. But then let's, if you can get that to us before we have to do the final budget vote, great. If you think you can absorb it in the current budget by moving money around, that's also fine. But that's what so does that help clarify like how we've done these separate things, and we're just trying to make sure we're doing it through the LMPD budget moving forward?
Yes, sir, that makes sense.
Okay, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilwoman Chapel.
Okey-doke. Just one. 4 divisions, 1, 2, 3, and 4, have a total of 88% of year-to-date non-fatal shootings. These same 4 divisions total 79.92% of year-to-date homicides. I acknowledge that this isn't representative of other metrics such as traffic stops or other crimes like domestic violence, burglaries, or robberies, but I was wondering, is funding and workforce distributed evenly among all 8 divisions? And do you have a breakdown of workforce and budget for each division? Because it seems like some are a little bit more intensive than others.
You're 100% correct in that crime is not evenly distributed, and neither is manpower. So that is one of the balances that we are always facing. One of the things that makes manpower redistribution difficult is we have to balance that, yes, when you're talking about districts 1, particularly districts 1, 2, and 4, those are smaller urban districts, so going from point A to point B takes a lot less time than it does in the 7th Division or the 8th Division, where your officer per square mile makes a big difference in how long it takes to get places. And then you have to balance that against the crime rate and the number of calls for service and all those types of things. But yes, when you look at the manpower distribution, those divisions have our highest number of officers by percentage, and we can get you the breakdown of how many officers are in each division and what shifts they're assigned to.
Sure, and also kind of internally, are you looking at the jobs that those other divisions are doing that the busier divisions are doing that maybe can be taken off the plates of the of divisions 1, 2, 4, 3? Could they assist with paperwork, and they assist with other departments within LMPD? Are there ways that we're filling their time so they're not, I'm not saying that they're sitting on their hands or sleeping in a parking lot, but just looking at efficiencies, is there burden that can be taken off of those other divisions to help everyone run more efficiently and time effective?
Absolutely, and that's part of what we talk about when we restructured our ComStat, is that as opposed to going around and saying, what is everybody doing in your respective divisions, it's no, what's going on in the 1st Division, and how can the entire department help deal with those issues, or what's going on in the 2nd Division or the 8th Division, and how can the entire department work to deal with those issues. So where we can use CID or overtime to help in divisions where manpower might be short, and we do disproportionately fill overtime in different divisions because they have allocated less manpower. The other thing that we're doing is, and I think Councilman Winkler brought this up earlier, is our manpower study, that we haven't really evaluated our distribution of manpower based on modern statistics and where the population and our crime is. We have not changed our division boundaries since merger. And so those are things that we have to look at that, in all honesty, it takes a scientific background that I don't have and we don't have within the police department, which is why we had to outsource that.
Great, and so that information will be included in that report that's coming out this summer?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome, thank you.
Councilman Bechon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is a follow-up question to Councilman Joseph's question earlier, Chief. So in the fleet operations on our police vehicles and everything that you all use, are they leased or owned assets?
we have a fleet of leased vehicles as well as a fleet of owned vehicles.
Would it be cheaper for us to shift everything to leased vehicles, or so the maintenance and things can be up to date a little bit better?
Particularly for marked cars, that's not really a viable model. Most of our fleet vehicles are vehicles that are unmarked, because obviously we can do different things with those, and we can turn those vehicles over for some of those units that need unmarked vehicles.
Got you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that.
Councilman Owen.
Thank you, Chair. Chief, I know it's a little bit complicated, but I wanted to get a little bit of visibility into the drone program. I know we've funded that through emergency management, and it's in fire, and so I wonder, one of the things for us as council members, and for me in particular, that just sends me through the roof are the groups of people riding around on dirt bikes and motorized bikes in packs and doing wheelies down the street and all that sort of thing. And I keep asking about the drone program and saying, is it up and running and its effectiveness? So a couple of questions. One, where are we in terms of the drone program as it relates to your all's enforcement, LMPD's enforcement, and is there visibility into that drone program in this budget for you guys, or is it all in fire and emergency management?
Okay, so multi-part question. Yes, sir. So I don't like the pace of where our drone program was compared to where it is. I think we should have been much more farther along in training pilots and getting drones out there in the street. And so we have, Councilman Piagentini, I think that half of our conversations are about this very issue. And so we're in the process of reevaluating our internal drone program, and Colonel Burbrink has taken the lead in making sure that we have a functional internal drone program. Part of that is a management issue, and in all transparency is not wanting to add a sergeant, create a unit for one sergeant to not actually supervise anybody except for administrative stuff. So we're looking at different options for how to administer that, because it is heavily federally regulated internally, and what's going to be the most effective way to do that internally. That being said, drone as first responder is something that is with both fire and MetroSafe and the police department, and those funds are set in MetroSafe, but we're heavily involved in that program. And I would say probably somewhere between 60 and 70% of the utilization for that program, once it gets up and running, will be by the police department.
So as far as this budget goes, and part of my question, and I didn't ask it, but part of my question is about strategy from LMPD's standpoint. I felt like for a while there was momentum behind that program, and then it has kind of faded, partly because the implementation has been slow to gain traction. So are we funding within your budget? Are we continuing to fund the drone program? And is there, I don't think there's visibility specifically into that program in your budget, or at least I didn't specifically see it. Are we funding that at a level? What I don't want to do is, having funded the drone program and the equipment, and then not support it. And so I guess I'm asking, are we funding your budget, the drone program within your budget, at a level where we're going to use those assets in a way that are going to benefit all of us?
I believe so. So it's not the funding right now is not our problem. It's me managing the program and making sure that it's functioning the way.
And is there any place in your budget that you can point to and say that points specifically to the drone program, or is it all just mostly manpower? And once we bought the actual drones themselves, the expense really at that point is just management and manpower?
Yes, sir. This is a management manpower issue, not a equipment issue.
And so the strategy hasn't changed from the beginning. You still want to go in that direction.
Yes.
It's just that it's been slow. The implementation has been slow to gain traction.
Yes. Right now, that program has been primarily based out of our tech services, which manages all of our computer data technology, in addition to trying to stand up a drone program, and that clearly is not functioning the way that it should be functioning. And so we've been in conversations in the last, I would say, month or so about how to redo that program.
Okay, so it's not a budget issue?
No.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Piagentini.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick clarification for my colleague, Councilman Chappell, as well as maybe direction for the chief. Just to give a sense, because a couple years ago, we looked into this, of how different these patrol divisions are staffed. The 8th Division, which covers my district, versus the 1st Division, which covers a large part of the west end of the city, has a 10x police officers per capita difference. In other words, there's 10 times more officers per person in the 1st Division than there is in the 8th. That's the most extreme 2 examples that we were able to find. And then all the other divisions come in between that. So my ask is, as you're putting together that presentation, it not just be raw numbers by division, but also what are the populations in those divisions. I think that would help demonstrate how different, and you know, to your point, Chief, that you're putting police officers where the majority of the activity is, where the demand is, right? And you're reacting to that, so thank you.
We've been joined by Councilman Reed. Councilman Bradshaw has a question, and then we'll go to Councilman Reed.
Just a quick one. Chief, is the pension cost affect your balance sheet, or is that a different balance sheet?
Yeah, so that's built in our personnel cost of what goes into the.
So that should be reducing each year, right? Or maybe in the future.
I'll leave that up to OMB to figure out how that works.
So the pension rate has decreased the last few years, and the rates are different for both hazardous employees and non-hazardous. And we presented on that during the overview, but we can definitely provide the rates.
Okay, I was just curious. And then the last one, Chief, just a couple of comments. The pension changes that had happened in '03 and '08, do you see that it has affected your, I mean, it obviously probably has, your manpower?
Anecdotally, I would say yes. That is, I would love to get back to a defined benefit pension system.
Thank you. Councilman Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chief. When you were at one of my town halls a couple of years ago, you made the comment, if I'm getting it wrong, please let me know, but we were talking about the fact that we were down some 200 or 300 officers, and you made a comment that you felt like technology was the future of policing. And I want to know if you still believe that, and number two, would you advocate for technology when it comes to traffic control in the city, if we could help you with the funding and turn some heads with regard to the state legislature?
Yes, sir, and that was part of the conversation that we had earlier. I do think that technology supplements manpower and makes things more efficient, but there is nothing that is going to replace an officer in a police car.
Are you an advocate for technology when it comes to traffic control?
100%, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Councilman, there was a rather robust conversation around that a little bit earlier in the meeting.
And I'm sorry.
No, it's
And I
fine.
apologize.
I would simply point out, you might want to go back and take a look and see if your questions were answered more completely there. Thank you. Councilwoman Rui.
Yes, very quickly, you mentioned your 30 by 30 initiative in there to increase female representation. Is there anything that we at Metro Council can do to help get that? Because we know how important it is to have everybody represented on there and to have the female perspective. So how can we help you with that?
Yes, ma'am. Our female applicants are up about 8.5% so far year to date, which is, obviously part of what we desire. I am open to any and all ideas, recommendation, and help when it comes to manpower, acquiring more applicants. When it comes to our manpower situation, it's not about targeting a specific group. It's about getting more applicants overall. The vast majority of applicants that we take do not qualify. We take a very low percentage of the people that apply, so we need more people to apply, period.
Why are most of them not qualifying?
Well, I can probably get you a breakdown on where they all drop out. A lot of them just fail to show up. A lot of them fail the physical fitness tests, and then we have a pretty rigorous background process that many get eliminated through.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilman Winkler.
Chief, I was going to piggyback off of Councilman Reed's question and just ask specifically, given some of the general funding, and I know it's not in the LMPD budget specifically, but around using AI, can you talk at all about any AI investments that would benefit the police force? And maybe this is a longer discussion for a future day at a public safety committee, but I'm just sort of curious where that's headed and if we need to be thinking about that budgetarily.
No, we absolutely need to be thinking about it budgetarily. This is a huge conversation nationally amongst police departments and how to use AI. Some of the places they're going is automated report taking through AI and video review and redaction through AI. And so those are the things that we're talking about, but in all honesty, I'm a little hesitant in a lot of those places because I don't want to make case law on it. So in some of those areas, I'll let some other agencies be the test dummies that end up in the Supreme Court. But we are looking at ways, that's obviously the way of the future. And it's going to make this job much more efficient when it comes to a lot of those just time-consuming things.
Councilman Hawkins.
Thanks, Chair. How many of your employees with stationary jobs got cruisers?
Excuse me? I'm sorry.
Okay. How many of your employees with stationary jobs have cruisers?
I can get you a breakdown on take-home vehicles and where they're assigned.
Okay, all right. My next question is, the training budget includes taking recruit classes to like the African American History Museum. I'm just using that for example. Have any of that showed any evidence of reducing bias?
I'm not sure that that's a quantitatively measurable stat that I could give you, but I can tell you, having been through that program, it is really I hate to say, but life-changing, perspective-changing program to go to the African American Heritage Museum and the Holocaust Museum.
Yeah, right,
and see that. I think it's been very, very impactful for the officers that have been able to go.
Okay, yeah. All right, I just wanted to see if it was, if you felt like that it was still needed or not.
Oh, I would love to be able to take the entire organization, and part of what we're doing with that is we're sending all of the majors and above with the recruits. So eventually the entire command staff will have gone through that program as well.
And you see that as being beneficial?
Wow, 1,000%.
Okay, great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks. Councilwoman McCraney has been with us the whole time and is now in the queue. I'm going to skip over a few folks. Everyone I'm skipping over, Councilwoman, has already spoken, so you're not cutting line.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm excited to know that I get to skip, although you just told me I didn't get to skip. But thank you for being here, LMPD. I appreciate the work you do. And I'm just curious about if someone said to you, we cannot approve this entire budget, where do you see a logical cut?
That's a very loaded question, ma'am. I would have to get back to you on that. I mean, in all honesty, that we've really tried to reduce costs as much as we can. We're shelling out a lot in overtime to fill spots of officers that we don't have. I mean, I think we could explore those unfilled personnel cost spots, but I think that's also a question for OMB and how they plan on those unfilled spots. We've gone through and cut some of those spots as well that have been sitting on the books unfilled as well.
Thank you. We will go through OMB to see if there's any adjustments that are logical, that make sense. And we're doing this for everyone, so don't feel that you're being picked on.
Thank you. Councilman Syme.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question, does the budget reflect the shortage of officers we have?
Yes, sir.
When I first took office, I heard that we were short up to 1,000 officers per capita. Could you, what is our officer per capita when it comes to comparing other major cities?
So I think you'll see when you compare us to other major cities that we are on the lower end per capita. But there's also a comparison to the metro and the crime rate. And I think that's part of the reason why I was an advocate for doing a study of our manpower so that we really understood how we stack up.
And so when did you do the study on the manpower?
That should be completed during the summer. That's ongoing right now.
And so it could be considerably more than the 250 that we're claiming right now, correct?
It very well could be.
And so that budget we need to start thinking about more.
Well, I would love to think about more, but we have to figure out how to get the people through the doors first.
Yeah, well, that too. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Herndon.
Thank you, sir. Regarding the comment about density, officers per population density, officers per population in certain districts, there are lots of reasons why people need your services, but is one of them, or a primary one, just simple density? That if 100 people live in this much area and 100 people live in this much area, is just the proximity to one another, does that automatically, I would think, increase the chances of conflict and other things, and therefore your service is needed? Is that
I think that'd be maybe an overly simple way of putting it, but generally, yes. There are so many factors that go into that.
That's not the only one. If I live by myself and I live by my family, the chances of conflict are not that, that's what, I know, that's.
I mean, if you take an extreme example of a very dense city like Boston that has a very low crime rate, they are an extreme outlier versus if you look at the complete opposite end, Memphis is not a extremely dense city, but they have more than twice the number of officers than we do because of their crime rate.
Okay. I just wondered if that had something to do with it and how much, if you happen to know, just curious.
No, density matters.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Councilwoman Shamika Parrish-Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My colleagues are asking a lot of great questions that covered mine, but I do have two. One is around how often are your language lines used? I see it's $60K allocated in the budget. Just want to see how often, how is it being used? Are there like worthy conversations? Like what's the length of it? If you have that, I know that's a little more detailed. But how is it going using that? I just say this because we have a growing international immigrant population. We know that even connected to some of the issues that we're dealing with in the community, and there's a big language barrier here. So just want to see, I'm glad you have it. Just want to see how effective it is.
Yes, ma'am. That's something that we've utilized more and more over the years through Voyance and the app that we have on our phones to be able to use it. We're trying to get people away from using things like Google Translate to systems that are more effective and have better efficacy. But our usage rates have gone up. I can get you the exact usage rates for that contract. One of the other things that we're looking at is some AI-related things, and through our contracts with Axon and our cameras, they are actually working on a live translate feature that our new cameras now have in multiple languages, where you can click on it and I can say something in English and have it translated to another language or vice versa. That is a new technology that isn't necessarily viable, but I imagine in the next year or so will be.
And before my last question, that physical agility test is no joke. I took it at 23, felt about 6 seconds, called a leg cramp. So I hope that as you all are working with people that you give them the time. I know it took a year for me to get to that point to be able to take it. I hope that you're using all kind of options to get good people in. I think people will always sign up to be the police, but we need more people to do it that are ready to serve. And so I hope you are working on ways to bring more of those folks in. My last question is around the pro-tactical contract. can you just say quickly what are those about and why does it need to be broken? Like why are you using them in that way? Because I know you have other tactical teams and things like that.
So I think the name is a little bit confusing on Pro Team Tactical. They're actually a physical therapist group and a wellness group. And so they are getting our officers back to work in a much quicker time and being able to treat injuries and have that turnaround and reduce the amount of time off spent by officers. The other thing that is, to your earlier point, there's a strength coach that is part of that. And that strength coach works with recruitment and particularly Rachel Arroyo, one of our officers in recruitment, who works with potential recruits on developing programs for them to be able to train for the PT test in order to get them through the door. So it's not just show up and take the test. Our recruitment staff works with them through our wellness center in order to be able to do that.
That's great to know because you really do have to train and have all of that equipment on. And I know that we worked with the fire department when I took it with the Cincinnati Police Department. So it's good to know that you have those options for people. And I think when you're recruiting, letting people know that you might want to take 3 to 6 months to prepare to be able to pass that. Because if people are getting disqualified for that, I think that's something that we could work on together. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Councilman Lininger.
Yeah, just one more one, sorry, everybody. It was sort of as a follow-up to Councilman Herndon's questions about density. When you compare Boston and Memphis, for example, and I think that there's a lot of extremes there, in those complicating factors, you'd probably say that that's, household wealth, education attainment, general difference in quality of life, maybe housing.
Oh, there are a ton of factors, and policing's only one of them.
Right. So might be something to think about in terms of root causes when you compare the two then.
Well, I think we absolutely need investments in solving those root causes of crime and violence.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Seeing no one else in the queue, I have to say Councilwoman Parrish-Wright is absolutely correct that my colleagues have been asking some really good questions, which leaves me with only 3, which probably makes you somewhat happy. I'm looking at agency receipts, and there's been a decrease in agency receipts. Specifically, it looks like there's you've zeroed out the restitution receipts. Can you speak to that? I don't know if you just moved it somewhere else or if you just don't anticipate getting any.
Yes, sir. So that's restitution for damage to vehicles and accidents that we're not at fault for, and that actually goes back to the fleet budget, not to us.
So there is still a number somewhere. It's just not in your budget anymore?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and so we missed an opportunity to ask when it was in fleet? Mr. Jackson, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I don't want to go back to fleet again. Is that where it is? Is it in fleet?
That's correct. It will be in Fleet's budget.
So a direct question to them would be, okay, we'll follow up with them then. Thank you. No, we are not doing a callback. This will be a simple reach out. So I'm also wondering about, and Chief Humphrey, I'd hate to put you on the spot with this one, but here goes. Workday has not been the most fun thing for us to try and understand and work with. Where are we in trying to struggle through the problems that's created for us?
So in the morning, I take Tylenol. In the afternoon, I take Advil.
Well, that may change my approach. Thank you.
But in all honesty, Sarah McNulty is our new HR director, and she has been working diligently to try to learn more about how that system operates. And I think we've made some pretty good progress because she came to our last staff meeting and said we are not utilizing it as good as we should. And so I'm hoping that some of our headaches in LMPD get taken care of in the coming months with Workday.
Great, thank you.
I can't guarantee that, though.
No, well, for your sake and ours, I hope that she's got a line on this. It's been challenging. And then the last one I hope is easier, but I'm not sure it will be. I wanted to ask about safety equipment and safety supplies. And again, I don't know if it's just we've moved them around in the budget to a different place, but you were at $983,080 in the original budget last year, and for this year's recommended, it's down at $200,000, so it's a reduction of $465,000. And then I look at safety and security equipment, that was up almost $2 million. It was $1.91 million, and this year it's in at $733,000, a reduction of $1.2 million. Should I be looking in another line somewhere, or are we just not buying safety equipment anymore?
No, some of that is that we were able to take some of that money, and we got a lot of the equipment that are going to be recurring costs, but they're not recurring every year. They're 5-year replacement costs, and so we were able to reduce some of that because we're not going to have that come up in the next year or so.
Good. So that is actual savings?
Yes, sir. Some of it is, and some of it is
Right.
just recombining budget items that's being bought by the same units.
Right. So we may see it again in the future, because I'm hearing you say it's not
Yes,
a
sir.
straight line.
Yes, sir.
But in this year's budget is reduction. Great, thank you. Still seeing no one else in the queue, those were my 3 questions. Being no one else is in, this hearing is officially concluded. We're a few minutes early. We will be starting the public session at precisely 6. So council members, you've got about 40 minutes. Go grab some Tylenol, and we'll get back at it. Thank you.